have the second quarter-final on the way very shortly here at the Mohammed bin Zayed Stadium in Abu Dhabi. It is China against Iran with a chance to take on Japan in the semi-finals. China could be in here. What a big chance this is to open the scoring. Somehow it's been kept out. Good delivery and it's off the line. Asmoon almost opening the scoring for Iran.
ایران 1-0 به همراه های سفید بودن دژاگر گرسون داخل محوطه یه ضربه داخل محوطه نزدیک بود دبل بکنه مهدی آفساید نبود و توپ گل نشد وای وای وای
Half an hour goal. Pretty much in control but only leading by one goal, but there could be a second here. It's another defensive mix-up and Asmoon takes full advantage. 2-0 Iran. Hesitation there, another defensive mistake and this could wrap up the win. 3-0 Iran.
بلند از زمین چین یه اشتباه طارمی میتونه پاس بده بریم واسه گل سوم کریم انصاری‌فر و بله گل سوم کریم انصاری‌فر ایران 3 چین 0 تموم شد کارشون ایران 3 جلو میفته و این برد میچسبه به همه مردم ایران.
Iran are in the semi-finals and it was comfortable. Carlos Queiroz' side winning by 3-0. Iran thoroughly deserved their place in the final four.
Hi guys, welcome back to another podcast. Myself, Arya Alaverdi. I'm joined with Sina Saimion and Babak and Gol Bezan. How are you doing, guys?
Hi Arya, hi Babak. It's good to be on. So looking forward to discussing the game against China.
Babak.
Hey guys, good to be on as always, and let's get this going.
Okay, so of course, as usual on Gol Bezan, we'll speak about the match against China that took place yesterday. Iran won the game 3-0. We'll also speak about some of the matches that happened leading up to the semi-final and the quarter-final. So we'll speak about the UAE against Australia, Qatar against South Korea, and Japan against Vietnam. Of course, we'll play Japan in the semi-finals, and then the other one will be UAE against Qatar. Okay, the first question will come to Babak. Babak, tell me about the game. How did it go? What was your opinions on it?
I think if people followed my tweets during the game, I thought it was one of our best attacking performances over the last 20 years. It was so fluid, great, quick one-touch passing. The build-up play was excellent. Obviously, it helped that the Chinese were playing quite high up and giving us a lot of space behind them to run into. And it was a perfect game for Sardar Azmoun and Mehdi Taremi, who I think we will talk about later as well. So overall, I don't think there was any real negative points. Maybe the fact that it was on the 1 or 2 occasions where China actually did have a couple of decent attacks. They were able to get in behind us quite easily, and there was in the second half especially, there was a moment where Ehsan Hajsafi, right near the end, he just touched the ball away from the Chinese attacker. Otherwise, he could have been goal side towards the goalkeeper and maybe slotting it in, giving us a few minutes of nervous ending to the game.
What did you think?
Yeah, I agree with all the points that Babak made. It was a complete performance, and of course at this stage of the competition, the quarterfinals, you get a 3-0 win. There's not really much that you can complain about. I thought whether it was on the defensive side or on the offensive, I thought we were good, we were solid. Although again, a very typical Iranian performance in the first, I'd say 5 to 7 minutes, where we were a little shaky at the back and we gave them probably one of the best opportunities we've given after the Oman game to any opposition, where they got into behind from our left-hand side and they could have scored. But after that, we settled into the game and they really didn't have a chance until towards the end of the game. So I think that might be a concern. But again, it's nothing new. We've seen that, especially in the World Cup on the Queiroz. The first 5-10 minutes of every game is a little shaky for us. Players are slightly nervous, and it takes them those few minutes to find their touch and slowly grow into the game. But against Japan, a much better opposition, of course, in the semi-final, we might not be able to afford to give those opportunities away, and we might be punished earlier on in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, first of all, you have to look at it. First of all, we won the game 3-0 against a team like China. You know, China's a definitely, you could say, a respectable team now in Asia with, you know, a coach like Marcelo Lippi who's done a good thing in China to go over there and really improve their national team. But I think we showed why we're the number one team in Asia. I think this game really sort of showed Asia that, you know, first of all, the other quarterfinals were all 1-0s. They were all kind of not the best quality of matches, but this match really showed our quality on the ball. I think 3 goals, you know, with the kind of pressure we put on them for 90 minutes, I think was a really, really good match. So we'll go on to some specifics now. Osman had a fantastic game. Osman had a fantastic game, you know, from the first minute. He was really up for it. He was really looking to press their defenders. They were making mistakes. I think one thing that you look at from a striker is, can they go and exploit errors? Or can they actually make the defence make errors and then exploit it? You know, some strikers thrive on defenders making errors, but he actually sometimes, not always, but sometimes, like the game against China yesterday, actually goes out and tries to win the ball himself and you know, and try to exploit it. What did you guys think? Bobak, what did you think of Osman's performance?
I thought it was a complete centre forwards performance, and one of the best we've seen by any Iranian striker. Again, I would say in the modern era. He hustled them, he kept them under pressure, like you said. He chased down lost causes, he was good in the air, he was strong. Osman doesn't have blistering pace, but just breathing down their necks, it would make the Chinese defenders nervous. And I thought it was a 10 out of 10 performance by him. Maybe, if you take out goals, just on the performance level, maybe his best in an Iran shirt for us. So we would want him to have this sort of performance again, hopefully. And we were waiting for it throughout the tournament. He'd scored three goals before that, but you felt there was more to come from him. And I think in terms of a performance level and in terms of what you're looking for from your striker, like you said, Arya, it was the perfect performance. I hope that without Mehdi Taremi, he's able to perform in the same way. But for me, Taremi is the perfect foil for Sardar Azmoun, and they have an amazing chemistry together. So it's yet to be seen.
Yeah, of course, Taremi is suspended for the next match. Sina, what did you think of our two, star men who scored the first 2 goals?
Well, I mean, in regards to Azmoun, I completely agree with everything Bobak said. Again, it was a complete performance, but I also think, if we look at the goal individually, we see that the defenders made individual mistakes on all 3 goals. Now, if that was just the case for 1 goal, you could say we got a bit lucky, they made a mistake, but because it happened on every single goal, I would assume that it was something that Queiroz picked up on in his analysis and in terms of doing his own homework for this game, that he saw a weakness in the central defenders, whether it's technique, because on all the 3 goals it was a matter of the defenders not being able to get a hold of the ball and control the ball early, and of course Osman pressing them. And I thought it was Iran's game plan from the beginning to make sure that the defenders don't have much time. I don't think I saw them control or even have a good first touch on any of the occasions. And of course with the goals as well, we saw he picked their pockets throughout the game, and to be honest, it could have been even more goals. But in terms of Taremi, I could talk a lot about Taremi and what he brings to this team. I know there's still some sectors in our fans that don't necessarily believe that he's the best possible choice for that role, but yeah, and I think they believe that when Taremi plays, that Taremi is probably a better player than Quddus or Tarabi. I don't think that's the case at all. We've spoken on this podcast about how good technically Samo Quddus is, one of, if not the best player at Team Melli from a technical perspective. But the role that Taremi plays from that left wing, acting as a second striker, making the movements that he does, I don't think we have anyone in Team Melli who can do that. He creates opportunities for himself and Osman. He misses a lot of chances, and I've been one who's been saying this since his Persepolis days when he finished top goal scorer. He misses a ton of chances. But if you believe that he ends up in those places by luck, and anyone else would be in the same places, then I don't think you've been watching football for long. It's a talent to be at the right place at the right time. It's what top clubs in Europe have always been looking for in strikers. And I think, especially on the first goal, it might seem like it's an easy tap-in. And at the end it was. But some people forget that it was the fact that the team was so deep. We were still recovering from a defensive phase. It was a direct one, a long effort. I think it was Safi from our own box, which then Osman chased down. And I don't think if it was anyone else other than Taremi would have actually gambled running across from probably outside of our own box all the way to the Chinese box to be able to finish that chance. So again, I think these are points that we need to remember. And as Bobak said, the link-up play between himself and Osman is brilliant. They gave each other assists, and of course they scored one each as well. And I would say that he will be a misser against Japan. Again, of course, he will miss chances, and some might say, in the bigger games we can't afford to miss those chances, and you might be right. But the point is that if he's not in the team, probably I would say 70% of those chances would not exist. And I think that's the key that we need to remember. But hopefully, for the next game, I mean, personally, I believe Karim Ansarifad will be the one who plays off the left wing, but I'm sure we'll talk about that later on. But I think Osman and Taremi are probably the best at the moment.
Yeah, I think quickly on Taremi, I'll just touch on it. I think you look at a player like him who like you said, he gets into the right areas to score goals, and he does miss chances. We know that, especially even in his club currently, in Al Gharafa, he does miss chances. But I believe if he goes to a European team and he plays in a team where he gets those chances to score on a regular basis, with players around him where they're going to create chances for him, and they're going to put it on the plate, I think he will become a better finisher. Maybe it's hard to become a better finisher. He's 25 years old, his technique is hard to adapt at that kind of age, but you can always adapt your mentality, you can always adapt your conviction and your composure. So if he can build on what he's got and go to a European team, I think that's what he needs in his career. We'll bring in our first guest for the podcast today. The first guest is Gudaze Faramarzian. His Twitter handle is GFAR__. Gudaz, how are you doing, man?
How you doing, Arya? Good to be with you guys on this amazing podcast. And I would like to extend my greetings to everyone who's listening to this podcast.
Thanks for coming on, man. So you want to speak about, give me your thoughts on the game, give me your thoughts on China's performance, Iran's performance, and what did you think?
Iran played amazingly. I feel like this was our best game during the entire tournament. We played really fluid. We were really dynamic. And all of this, I think, starts with Carlos Queiroz and his staff perfectly analyzing the lack of their defense's lack of speed and recognizing the space behind the defense. Which has started with China's number 5 being suspended, Ling Peng, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. He was suspended, and then we saw Marcel Lippi freaking out after the goal and subbing a defender, which was very interesting for me in the first half, subbing that defender right away. And then also the Sardar Osman and Taremi duo is amazing. We all know that. And I feel like that really comes in within people's criticism after the World Cup and people thinking they were not playing pretty well. But I feel like now they have their opportunity and they're playing amazing. Also, Ashkan Dejagah's accurate passing was for me a key. Out of 38 passes, he had 37 successful pass, 97 something % accurate passing, which was amazing for me. Also, last but not least, I feel like he doesn't really get credit, but I think Omid Ebrahimi for me was amazing, and he played really well in the middle, cleaning up, making sure they were pressing, the lines were, they were working, they were synchronized, and just being the title that he has, general, in the middle. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Japan game, and hopefully we can get another win and go to the finals.
Thanks very much, man. That was great analysis. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Bobak, I'll come to you first. Just on what Godaz was talking about, the midfielders, we played a midfield three of Ashkan Dejaga, Omid Ebrahimi, and Ehsan Safi was playing as a left-sided centre midfielder. What did you just think of that? What did you think of their performance? Did you feel like those three performed better than, when Amiri was playing? What was the difference?
Harsh to compare because the level of performance by the whole team was so different against China than in the previous games. So it's difficult to single out Amiri for, let's say, the change has been that Safi came on and this all happened. So I would say one of the main things that stood out on the game against China was the pressing. The level of pressing was relentless for 90 minutes. We were chasing down every time a Chinese player had the ball. There was 2 or 3 Iranians around them. The fitness levels were amazing. Ebrahimi probably had his best game of the tournament, like Gudars mentioned. He was excellent. Again, it helps when you have a lot of the ball and the confidence is flowing through your feet, let's say. So things are going for you, and then all the little things fall into place too. Ashkan has been solid throughout the tournament. I wouldn't say he was any better or worse. He's been giving you a consistent level throughout the tournament. Safi, though, for me, I don't know. The team played very well. I'm not saying Safi didn't play well, but to a point where I would say he should be a definitive starter in the next game, and let's say Amiri should not get back in. I don't think he did enough to make it a certainty, considering that Amiri is quite a popular player for Carlos Queiroz. So it's still open, up for debate. I would not be disappointed if Ehsan stays in. I think he gives you something more when it comes to set pieces. He's a bit quicker than Amiri, I would say. Maybe moves a little bit more all over the left side towards the attacking third. But Amiri is one of Carlos Queiroz's favorites. And okay, he's been a little bit subpar this tournament. It hasn't fallen into place for him, but we're going to have to wait to see. Personally, I think that we'll see Amiri a little bit further up front in the Japan game, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, I think you're right. Possibly Amiri could play left wing. I don't personally like him in that position. I don't think he plays well as a left winger, but we'll see what happens with that. Do you think maybe Ehsan won't play as a left back for Milad?
Not for me.
Not for you. Okay, Sina, go ahead. What were you thinking about the midfield?
Yeah, again, I completely agree on the points about Ebrahimi. I thought he had a very solid game, and again, I put that down to the fact that the gap between the midfielders weren't as big as it was maybe in the game against Oman in the first half, and I thought we closed those gaps really well, and I think it helped Ebrahimi a lot, and I agree again. I thought he had one of the best games he's ever had in an Iran shirt, not just in this tournament. On the point about Ehsan, the importance of Ehsan and the fact that I think for me, it was a no-brainer that he will play, is also going back to the point about Taremi. Taremi, when we are on the attack, he almost acts as the striking partner of Osman in the box, which then usually allows Amiri to play as a left midfielder. He kind of goes up to a 4-4-2 when we're in possession and attacking, which I think it was kind of obvious that he likes a left-footed player on that side. I know some people suggest that Torabi should play in midfield instead of Amiri or even Fortuz, but I don't think there was any question that Safi was going to start, not just because of his legs, but again, he has the ability to play as a left midfielder or a left winger when we are on the attack. I thought he had an average game, but one of the stats that I saw, and I saw this, again, credit to our friends at Metrica, he had a pass completion rate of 55%, which was the lowest out of all the Iranian players. And that really stood out to me.
Lots of long balls, I think. Lots of long balls.
Yeah, a lot of corners as well.
I don't know. No, I think they didn't include the corners and the crosses. As far as I'm concerned, I think it was mostly of course, the short passes and stuff like that. And I'm again, of course, you gotta take context into it, and you gotta analyze each pass individually. But I still don't think that's a very good rate of completion. I wonder if that will affect whether he will start the next game or not. But again, Taremi's suspension, as Bobak and yourself said as well, is another headache for him. And maybe if Amiri starts on the left wing, then we'll see Harsafi back into midfield. But I've been one of those who've been pushing for so long to see Harsafi in midfield. I was happy to see him back in there, and I would continue to have him in there. I don't have a problem. I think even considering the stat that I just gave, I think the more he plays there, the better he'll get. And I think in the long term as well, he might be a better solution in that position than.
Sina, I remember it was during the World Cup. We're talking about 2014, and he played there in midfield at times, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or was it right after the World Cup? And we were having a chat with Ali Reza Peykan as well. And the thing with Hajsafi is he ticks all the boxes to play in central midfield, but when he does play over there, what does he really add other than legs? You don't feel he has the discipline. There's a lot of running, a lot of Robbie Savage-like running if you've watched English football in the past, but you just feel that he's not so disciplined or composed when it comes to the ball. And the stat you threw about the passing percentage, it doesn't surprise me too much, although it does in the game against China, considering we really dominated and we weren't under enough pressure to give the ball away or turn it over. But overall, he's never really impressed me in central midfield, to be honest.
I think, sorry, Bola. The thing about it is, I think Amiri plays in that position because he's box to box. He will get back and forth, up and down. He's also the same. He's not necessarily great with the ball. He's not going to pass the ball 50 yards and get a ping towards the right wing. He won't do that necessarily. He might do it sometimes, but he won't do it necessarily. Hajsafi has that in his locker, but sometimes I think you're right, but like that he does lack a bit of. He's just not got enough. I think he's become a utility player in his career. He's not really sort of picked himself a position that he's going to be consistent with. He's been a left back, he's been a left winger, he's been a defensive midfielder, a centre midfielder. He's not really been that player in the middle all the time. So he has all the skills, you're absolutely right, but he does lack a little bit of consistency in one position. I think that kind of takes it away from his quality as well.
I think that's, again, he's always been a utility player, and I agree, but Bobak, I think, and you're right about the points about 2014 World Cup, it was in that one that he played as a left-sided midfielder, I think in one or two of the games. But again, if you look throughout the past 4 or 5 years on the Queiroz, the midfield has always included a box-to-box midfielder, someone who's got the running legs, someone who doesn't necessarily need to have the technical ability as good as other players, which again is one of the reasons why Amiri is shown in that role so much in the World Cup. Because, of course, we know Amiri is not the best player when it comes to the technical side. A lot of people question his inclusion even in the squad going into the World Cup. But we saw that in that role, he really stood out because the job that is expected of him is limited. And it's a role it's something that Queiroz has been looking for a long time. He tried Brahimi in that role, didn't necessarily work. He tried Kaliman Sarifad, if you remember, on that role ahead of the World Cup, didn't work, and then we were all surprised by Amiri in 2018. But Hajsafi is a player that has played that role. He's on the Queiroz, and of course at club level as well. And I would turn Oria's negative points about his versatility in position into actually a positive point. That's a player that can play multiple positions means that he has the awareness, he has the tactical flexibility to play in those roles. And that's not something everyone can have.
I wouldn't say it was a negative. I wouldn't say it's a negative. I would say it's a bit of a jack of all trades sort of thing, where he's not necessarily getting the consistency of games in that position.
Again, it's something that Karish likes, and we've seen it with the players that he's been continually invited from his first year.
The question here is that everything everyone says here kind of stands true. But the question is, has Hajsafi done enough to justify playing ahead of Vahid Amiri in that position?
At the moment, I would say no. I think next game Amiri will come in. But again, it will depend on, is Amiri going to play left wing?
Exactly. I think he may get a reprieve here because of the Taremi suspension. But if Taremi wasn't suspended, looking at the last game, I would probably throw back in Amiri. That's what I would have done against Japan.
Alright guys, let's move on a little bit about this topic. We'll dwell on it a little bit. Okay, let's go just touch on the defence. We had Rami Rezayan, Murtaza Purali Ganji, Hossein Khan Zadayan and Mirad Mohammadi, who I thought marshalled the game quite well. They did give away a few chances to China, who, if they had a better striker, they could have got back into the game. I think there were times where we made a couple of errors that, were question marks, but I think we were able to sort of get away with it in some ways. What do you guys think, Sina?
Yeah, I think certainly compared to the Oman game, I thought there was an improvement in the back four. I thought Rezayan had a decent game, and Purali Ganji was back to his best. I didn't think he had best of the games against Oman, but he was back to his usual form that we're used to. I thought Khan Oni again had a solid game. He didn't make any major mistakes. I think the chance that we gave to them earlier on in the game was a combination of errors throughout the back four, and also one of the midfielders, who I can't remember who it was, which caught us out. But I thought for the rest of the game we handled the strikers well. And you're right about them not having the best striker. I think their striker Wuli went off after 20-25 minutes because of an injury. So I wonder if that had an impact. But again, we've kept a fifth clean sheet. I don't think we were troubled in this game as much as we might have been against Oman and the game against Iraq to a certain extent. So I was quite happy with the back four. I'm not sure if he will continue to play Khan Oni or if Hosseini will come back in, but I thought Khan Oni didn't do himself any harm in terms of cementing his position as a starter for the semi-final or even a final if hopefully we get the win. But again, it's one of those things we'll have to wait and see.
Nah. Imagine Hosseini will be back in. Yavi Shaw, we've got another guest coming on. He is called Yavi Shaw. His Twitter handle is @Yavi_Shaw. How you doing, man?
Hello guys. How are we this evening?
Good to have you on.
Pleasure.
Speak to me about the match.
Well, I think from listening to the preview pod of the China game, we were expecting to revert a little bit to type and play a bit more of a defensive game and counter-attack. But I think we were all pleasantly surprised with just how attacking we were, especially within the first 20, 25, 30 minutes. I think obviously we started a little bit shaky, as mentioned earlier, giving away that early chance. But once we got over our usual big game, big tournament nerves in the first 5 minutes, we pressed like I've not seen before. Sardar Osman was a one-man gegenpress machine, in the words of Jurgen Klopp. I saw short, sharp, first-time passing in the final third. And I haven't, as mentioned earlier, I haven't seen attacking football from Iran especially in a major tournament like this for a very, very long time. Maybe even the Ali Dai days. A lot of praise needs to go to Sardar. He was energy. He had conviction. He was forcing their defenders into making mistakes, and we need to see the consistency from him when it comes to his mental strength. But I always feel with him when he when he makes the first 2 or 3 right decisions in a game, you know it's his sort of game and it's going to go for him. But if he misses the first 2 to 3 chances, then frustration can set in and it can affect his whole game. But no, he deserves, I'd probably say, the vast majority of credit for the early part of the performance against China. I think, not to get carried away, I mean, we played extremely well against them. But as you can see from today's results with Australia and South Korea going out, that no team in this tournament should be taken as small or weak when it comes to this stage of the competition. So I think today's results extend our beating of China in a way that should be in a positive light. One thing I'm going to say that might come across as a little bit controversial with all the praise given to Taremi, is that I definitely recognise and understand his partnership with Sardar, and especially when we have the ball, being the support striker. I think this could be a bit of a blessing in disguise with his yellow card. I think also when it comes to the biggest games in semi-finals and finals, and you do have chances, but they're very sparing. You might have 1 or 2 major opportunities within these games. And Taremi has shown that he needs 3 to 4, I would say, almost clear-cut chances before he can convert one. Now, the question is, number one, can we create that many chances in pressurised situations when it comes to latter stages of tournaments? And also creating them is one thing, and creating that many is one thing, and will he be able to be the person who takes one of those? So I think it could be a blessing when it comes to those chances, and maybe I'm hoping that Ghoddos plays for his physicality. I actually am going to be quite extremely positive, and I think Japan's style of possession-based football plays into our hands when it comes to our counter-attacking football. I definitely think in this game we will revert to type and we will be more defensive, deep-lying and trying to hit them more on the counter. And I think with a player like Ghoddos' physicality, he can almost run the midfield. Now, I might be overplaying his... Well, he needs to play first, is one of the things. And we all know that Carlos Queiroz' lineups will always have a wild card or 2 in them. But I definitely believe he can be the key to unlock that game.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I want to touch on it with the other guys. Thanks very much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so just touching on his point about his replacement, Taremi's replacement for the left wing spot against Japan. Personally, I would like to see someone Ghoddos start as well, but I think that's because of me being a fan. A coach's perspective would go with someone a little bit more, not defensive, but a little bit more balanced. I think Ansari Farr is a good option. Amiri is also a good option. I think those 2 will give you that kind of support in the defence as well. What do you guys think? Bye-bye.
Arya, I think you hit the nail on the head. Look, I think the choice that Carlos Queiroz makes will tell us a lot about his mentality or approach to the game. If it's someone Ghoddos, you're not going to take someone in for too much of a defensive performance, let's say. So you would assume with someone in, you're looking to hit them and take the game to them. I feel, initially I thought this could be a blessing, just like Yavi said during the game. I said, okay, we lose Taremi, it's a big, big loss, but this could be someone's moment to shine and really take the shirt as one of his own and make sure he starts in the final as well. But the more I think about it right now, I feel it's too much of a risky choice, and it's more likely Carlos Queiroz goes with one of the more trusted players who are going to be tactically aware and disciplined throughout the game. They've played enough big games under Queiroz to know exactly what he expects, because whatever you want to say about Japan's performances during this tournament, I would say Japan is, for the past 20 years, has been the best team in Asia. And they have the consistency, they have the mentality, they keep the ball well, they've always lacked that top striker, but everywhere else on the pitch, you would say they're quite a solid side. So my gut says we're going to see Vahid Amiri there with Ehsan Al-Safi in midfield, but like you said, Arya, Carlos Queiroz always makes one or two choices and no one has ever predicted them till now.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to guess. I mean, we'll see what happens. Ansari Far's a similar player to Taremi in some kind of ways. He's also a striker. He can play the left winger. He's got a physicality. I think that's another option. What do you think, Sino?
I think you've covered all the basics in terms of the defensive side of things, but I would add from the attacking point of view, and this is where the difference lies between Taremi and the roles they play between Taremi and someone like Quddus, is that Quddus is so good, you want him on the ball in the build-up play. You want him to be involved in creating chances. You don't necessarily need that with Taremi. You want Taremi to be in the box next to Osman, finding those spaces, getting at the end of the moves. So I think that's where the difference is between the roles, and I think it depends on what kind of role he wants to go with. If he wants to go with, again, someone who will partner Osman in the box on in the attacking phase, who will try to get at the end of the moves, Ansari Farha would probably be a good option. Someone who has, again, as you said, he has the work rate. He's again one of the probably favourites of Queiroz. He's always been in almost every squad that he's announced. I think that would probably be who he goes for. However, again, I think it's something that we saw against Vietnam, and it worked with Quddus playing. We played against a back three, and we needed to outnumber them in midfield to make sure that we can expose and we can make the back three really struggle. We had Quddus, who also acted as almost like an extra midfielder, and it was Osman sometimes on his own completely against the back three. So again, it depends on what kind of role he expects from the left winger. We could see Quddus, we could even see Torabi, we could see Amiri, but I think if he's going for a straight swap for Taremi, then Ansari Farha would probably be a better option.
I would go with someone. I would say unleash him and take a little bit of a gamble. He still hasn't really clicked to the level where you'd say, yeah, he feels comfortable. It reminds me a little bit of Jahan Bakhsh on the other side throughout his international career. But we're talking about Japan. It's going to be a big game, element of surprise. Maybe take the gamble, give someone the start rather than bringing him on in the second half. I would go a little bit adventurous personally.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think I'd start Amiri in midfield. I think he gives you enough defensive cover on the left side with Milad Mohammadi. You don't really necessarily need Ehsan if you've got Dejaga in midfield. And I think for me, Quddus is just he's on form. I mean, you look at some of the highlights that he's performed. The highlight reels that he's had this tournament, it's unbelievable. You know, the first touch, the nutmegs, the little, step overs here and there. It's brilliant to watch. I think it's like watching a Brazilian player play for Iran. It's really nice to see. All right, we'll move on to Japan.
Also, sorry, Arya, just one last point. I think even from the defensive point as well, one thing that we missed is that Japan probably has one of, if not the best right back and left back on the continent with Sakai and Nagatomo. They play at the highest level in Europe, plenty of experience, and they will bomb forward and trouble the defence. So now, also, then you still have the headache of if you play Quddus, and as you said, defensively he might not be able to give the cover. So then what are you going to do with Sakai as right back? So again, I think that's another one of those things that will affect his...
Yeah, but we say that, but has there been a player who ultimately, after some time under Queiroz, hasn't pulled his weight in the side, Sina? I don't think so. I think even with someone you've seen, he's tracked back, he's got stuck in, he's made maybe one or two little bit of rash challenges as well. So I think the whole thing about he's not going to give us a defensive cover is being blown out of proportion just based on the type of player that he is.
You look at the game again.
We heard this from Pejman in the World Cup. That's from what he's heard, that Queiroz doesn't necessarily trust someone.
Yeah, but that was someone. We're talking about 10 months ago.
We said this before the tournament, that this is someone's tournament, and
I
he
look
needs
at
to be
the
starting.
game.
So let's see. I mean, I hope that he does. We've talked about this on several times, that if he does start and if he's given the chance, he could even be the best player in the tournament. But I think he needs to be given the free role and the freedom to play to his ability, and I hope he does.
Look at the game against Iraq. You know, he played in that sort of defensive-minded midfield on the left side. I think, you know, he could start. If we'll just need to wait and see. Now we'll move on to the semi-final against Japan. You know, Japan's a great team. Japan have some great players. Ritsu Doan, Osako. I think is he injured? I don't know. He's not been playing. Haraguchi, another great player. They beat Vietnam 1-0. It was Doan with a penalty kick. You know, it wasn't much of a game in my opinion. Japan didn't really show. They didn't show what we showed against Vietnam, which was consistent pressure. Vietnam had chances against Japan. They could have scored a couple of goals, and they were causing them issues in the defence. Also, the other semi-finals were Qatar won against South Korea, 1-0. Also, another 1-0 was UAE against Australia. Now we'll play Japan. Japan, a great team. I think this game will cement us as the best team in Asia. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I think this game is a big game. It's a final before the final. We expected teams like Japan and maybe even Korea and Australia, but really Japan, for me, I always look at them as the litmus test in Asia. And I know we haven't played them too often over the last 10 or 15 years, but for me, I respect the way they have developed their football gradually with the league, their professionalism. They have bit by bit improved their standards to the point that playing against South American teams or European teams is second nature to them. And they have the confidence, the professionalism, and the experience, like you said, Arya and Sina earlier. I think the whole team is playing in Europe, if I'm not mistaken, or at least 9 or 10 of the players were playing in Europe. So they have the experience. In defense, you have Yoshida, Nagatomo, Sakai, like you said. You have Haraguchi, who plays in Bundesliga, if I'm not mistaken. You've got Doan, who's an up-and-coming star for them. You've got Osaka, who's been injured, though, I think, like you said, and hasn't played much. But they have quality all over the pitch. So the winner of this game would probably go into the final feeling like this is their tournament. They shouldn't underestimate the opponents, but I think you would give the edge to the winner of this game.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to quickly add, I think Japan, for me, Maya Yoshida is their biggest weakness, in my opinion, in that defence. Yoshida, yes, he plays in Southampton in the Premier League, but for me, I think he lacks a bit of pace, and I think that Sadr Osman can definitely exploit it. I think if you put him on one-on-one against him, I think Osman gets him all the time. Well, Sina, what do you think about this match?
Yeah, I think one thing that we need to consider about Japan is something Yavi pointed out as well, in terms of them being able to hold possession. And something a bit uncharacteristic we saw from Japan that worries me a little is their performance against Saudi. Saudi Arabia on the pitch, they were a team that like to keep the possession, like to pass the ball around. And going into the game, I expected Japan to fight with Saudi for possession, for control of the ball. But no, they completely sat back. They gave Saudi all the time in the world. I think at the end, Japan only had 24% possession, but they ended up winning the game. And I think that's a different edge to them in this tournament that we need to be wary of. That, they're not going to be naive as they were in the World Cup against Belgium. I mean, we all remember the last few minutes that they were unlucky. They conceded a late goal, but I think they're not going to make the same mistakes here. And they'll be a lot more tactically astute. And I think that's something we definitely need to be wary of as well, that they can mix it up. They can hold possession when they need to. They can control the tempo of the game when they need to. And they have the plays and they have the tactical ability to sit back and absorb pressure and hit on the counter, because they have the pace going forward. Also, they also have Muto, of course, of Newcastle that we've forgotten. I think Osako is back from injury. But again, looking at their bench, I was watching the game against Vietnam, and they brought Inouye on, who plays for Alaves, and a couple of other players who play in Europe, so they have strength in depth as well. But I think the biggest thing for me that stood out was the performance and the tactical performance by them against Saudi. That not worries me a little, but I think it's interesting to see.
Yeah, we speak about Japan's team. They got it's really frightening how much depth they've got as well. They haven't taken Keisuke Honda, they haven't taken Kagawa either. Some of their most experienced players, whereas we've taken Dejaga and Shojai. It's quite interesting how that's happened. We still don't have players growing in Europe as much as Japan have. Okay, moving on to predictions. Last thing we'll speak about are the predictions for the semi-finals. The other match is Qatar against UAE, United Arab Emirates. Bobak, I'll come to you. Yovi, I'll also ask you as well, since you're also on the call with us. Bobak, what do you think that this match is going to turn out?
I'd say 2-1 Qatar. Qatar's had a first, let's say, revenge against their foe Saudi Arabia during the tournament, but now this is the part 2 of that installment, and the UAE and Qatar have a little bit of bad blood between each other right now as well, so I think it'll be a highly charged affair.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good game to watch, Sina.
Yeah, I agree. I think, UAE I haven't really been impressed with throughout the tournament. I wasn't impressed with Australia either necessarily, but I expected them to get to the semi-final. I think, barring any surprises, and I had a conversation with Bobak earlier, and he pointed out a bad refereeing call could make the game, and I agree. You never know. But from a footballing point of view, I think Qatar are a much better team, and I would expect them to continue to be the surprise package from a neutral point of view and get to the final. I'd probably say another clean sheet for Qatar, who have the same amount of clean sheets as us in 5 clean sheets, and probably a 2-0 win for Qatar, and they'll be in the final.
Yovi, give me your prediction.
I'm going to go for that bad refereeing call and say that it will be 1-0 to the UAE, and they will be in the final, and hopefully, of course, against us.
Yeah, the referees could always favour the home side. I think Qatar will get it though. I think 1-0 Qatar. What do you think about our match then? Iran against Japan. Bobak, Mr. Golriz.
In typical Bobak Golriz fashion, I'm gonna say that Japan will nick this by the odd goal. I think 2-1 maybe, and I think Maya Yoshida, we have to be careful of set pieces. He's very good in the air, even though he's not the tallest of players. He's got a good goal scoring record, I think, at Southampton, and if I'm not mistaken, he's got double digits for Japan as well. So I'm going to say that we're just not going to make it through, although I sincerely hope I'm wrong.
Nah, you're mistaken, my man, you're mistaken. Sina, what do you think?
I agree, I completely agree with the points about set pieces. I think they've scored a couple of goals from set pieces in this tournament as well. So Bobak is right, but I would go for actually a set piece winner from us. I think it's going to go to extra time. I think it's going to be a really tight game, hard to predict. I'm hoping for a Pirelli Ganji winner. Particularly because I have him in my fantasy football team and I need him to score. So I'd go for a 1-0 win.
Yeah, and Yavi, what do you think?
I'm going to say that we always usually win with high drama. So I think we're going to have a 2-1 extra time win. It's not going to go to penalties, but we will win it 2-1 in extra time.
You guys are too negative. I'm gonna go with my national team. I'm gonna say we're gonna smash the Japanese 3-0. I think Majid Hosseini will get a hat-trick. I think will be.
If we lose, I'm coming for you.
No. Honestly, I don't think Japan have what it takes. I think.
Honestly speaking, maybe you guys are younger than me, but the only team that has ever made me cry for Team Melli was Japan, 1997 in Malaysia. I don't know if you guys know the legend of Ostad Asadi, but 3-2 extra time defeat against them, and that was it. So that was the own goal, which was ruled out somehow for offside. But yeah, the 3-2 game, it was a fantastic, dramatic affair, like Yavi predicted, and I just don't know if we can handle such such drama when we're so close to ending 43 years of pain.
No. Majid Hosseini. He's your guy. All right.
Well, he's going to score the own goal apart from, bringing him back to memory of what's said.
No. He'll score the winner. All right. This was a good podcast, guys. Thanks for coming on, Yovi, as well. Also, other guest was Goudaza Farmarzion. Make sure you follow them on Twitter. Guys, we have a game on Monday against Japan. I think it's 2 p.m. UK time. I can't remember the other times, unfortunately, as I also live in the UK. So make sure you guys, really support the national team. You get behind their guys, get to the final, and Majid Hosseini gets the goal to win the game. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Hi, this is Kat, and you're listening to Gol Bezan, and I hope you continue listening to their amazing podcast. Thank you all for the support. Love you, Gol Bezan.